Hello everyone. Let me know if you are able to see the PPT screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, which screen you are seeing? Where there are two slides or just one slide?
It is one slide.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so we will quickly go through the SOQL queries. See, in the SOQL queries, you will not get direct questions. There are very few theoretical questions. So most of the time, the SOQL queries will be around the examples and the scenarios. All right. And to understand the example and to understand the scenario, you need to know like all the operators, all the clauses available in the SOQL query so that you can form the ultimate SOQL query, which your interviewer is expecting you to write. There are hardly three four theoretical questions, but most of the time you will get the scenario based question on this. Like he'll be asking you like how to get the latest 5 records created in the lead, or how to get the leads created last week, or how to get total number of leads based on the lead source, or how to get the total number of account, how to get the maximum sum of the account. So all those scenario based questions will be there, but very few theoretical questions like what is the difference between SOQL and SOSL queries, and what is the dynamic SOQL, what is the bind variable. So there are few theoretical questions, but most of the time in this topic you will be getting the you will be getting the scenario based question only. All right, so we will first understand what are the SOQL queries very quickly, because I know most of you are already aware about this. I don't want to spend much time on this, but we will quickly go through what it is. So SOQL query is the query language used in Salesforce to retrieve data from the Salesforce database. Okay, pretty similar to SQL, but it has less functionalities than SQL. We do not have join, and we do not have couple of things which we used to have in the SQL. Okay. Yeah, we were supposed to start LWC, but then everybody forced me to cover the SOQL as well. So here I am doing that. If we get time, we will start the LWC as well. Otherwise, tomorrow. Okay. All right. See, so the example you can see in the bottom of this screen is that select ID name from account where created date is equals to today, where the SOQL query will always start from a select. Okay. Select is a clause. Okay, and then after that you will have the the fields which you want to retrieve. Like here I'm just retrieving the ID and name field, and then from is also a mandatory clause in every SOQL query, by which you will tell that from which table you want to fetch the fields you have mentioned. Okay, so select ID comma name from account where is again another clause which basically used to filter out the data. Okay, so here I am filtering out all the accounts which were created today. So in a simple language, this query is saying that we need to fetch all the accounts which were created today, and we need to fetch the ID and name field from those accounts. All right. If you see that the definition that the from clause indicates the object or the objects from which to retrieve the data. It is simple and straightforward. Select statement, always SOQL queries will begin from the select statement, which specifies the fields to retrieve from the Salesforce object. All right. And then there are relationship queries as well, which we will talk about shortly. And we will also go through the examples as well. Just a second. All right. Then we have operators in Salesforce, SOQL queries. So operators are basically used within your queries to, do your conditioning better, to make sure that you are able to filter the data properly. We will use different types of operator. There are basically 3 types of operator. One is the comparison operator, which basically covers the equals to, not equals to, greater than, less than, greater than equals to, and less than equals to, which are pretty simple to use. So we will not go through much in detail. Similar to that, we have logical operator, which are and, or, and not. Okay, so if we have to filter out data based on multiple conditions, then we have to use these logical operators to make sure that we are able to attach multiple condition in a single where clause. All right. And then we have like operators. Like operators are used for the pattern matching in a query. All right. So we have like keyword and then we have in keyword. Okay. They both are very important. So we will go through the examples of these two first, and then we will move forward in our slide. Okay. So let me open my Salesforce screen and show you first, and then we will talk about other things. Just give me a second, guys. So here we are in the screen two. And if I open the developer console, it's pretty blank. We have the query editors. Okay, so we will go through the query editor, or we can also use the tool we have, uh, Salesforce Inspector, but I'm going to show you query editor because it is available with everyone and they will be able to do the simple queries from here straight away. So if I write down just a simple select ID, comma name from account. This is just a simple SOQL query. You just click on execute and you'll be able to see that we have only 5 accounts in this org. All right. You can keep on adding fields here. So whatever fields you add, you will be created date will be added on the table. All right. So that's a simple structure of a SOQL query. And you combine it with the where clause. Let's say where name is equals to, let's say test account. So you will get just one. Okay, if I write down name is equals to IBM, we will get the 2 accounts. We can use AND operator here, and we can create another query. Created date should be equals to, should be greater than, let's say, so here what we did, we used an AND operator to, have add two different values. One value is this, another value is this. And then here we use the logical operator to, filter out the accounts which were created after 16th November 2022. So we will get only one account. So that's how we combine the logical operators and the AND operators and all to make sure that we are able to get the desired results out of it. All right. Now I'm going to query the select ID from my name from lead because we have data in the lead. All right. Lead, we have got 74 results. We do not have any field stage status. All right. So if I do the query on the lead, we will get the multiple results. Okay, now we are going to discuss how to use the like keyword. Okay, see, like keyword is basically used again to get the filtered data. Okay, and like is basically used where I have to, let's say, filter the name, all the name which starts with, let's say, test. Okay, Okay, this is ending with the test. If I put it like this, it will fetch us all the names which starts with all the leads whose names start with the test. It will fetch. Okay, if I put it like this under the percentile symbol. All right. If I put this symbol in front of it, then it will fetch all the leads which ends with test. Okay. And if I put test in between this percentile symbol, then it will fetch all the leads where test is available, be it in the middle, be it in the front, be it in the, be it in the beginning, be it in the last. It will fetch all the leads which contain test as a keyword. So whenever we have to do a keyword based search, then we have to use the like keyword. It will give us the results based on the key term we are using inside the like keyword. Any doubt in the like keyword, guys?
So basically percentage means 0 to any number of characters, right?
Hmm. If you just write percentile T, then it will fetch you everything which contains T in the name. If you leave it blank, then it will fetch you everything. Getting my point? So we most of the time use percentile whenever we have to make sure that we are fetching all the leads which are, in the particular key term. If you also, there is one another keyword, you can also search it like this. And this underscore means that this character can be anything. So it will check that the first keyword is T, second is S, third could be anything. It could be A, B, C, D, E. Here by giving underscore, you have said that it could be anything. And then last will be T. So it will check for something like this, where this underscore alphabet can be anything. So that is also a valid statement. Most of the time you will be using SOQL queries to make sure that you are fit. See, when you say that, when you get a requirement like you have to fetch all the leads whose name contains this, or whose name contains that, or whose status contains this, whatever you want to, if you have a keyword on basis of that you need to fetch something, then you can use the like keyword. Okay. If you need to fetch all the accounts where owner is owner name contains this, then also you will be able to use the like keyword. Okay. So it's basically a keyword kind of a base search where you want to filter your data based on the given name or something, then you will use the like keyword. Okay. Any doubt in this, guys? Right. Then second one is the in keyword. Okay, in basically is used whenever you have a value defined some in the, let's say if I open the debug console, I'll be able to show you. Okay, list of IDs. Will be where account ID in. We have already used these things when we did the trigger practice, so I was expecting that I need not to cover this. So what we are saying is that in the opportunity query, we need to fetch all the opportunities whose account ID already available in the this particular account ID list. Okay, so we are here, see, if we do not have the in keyword, then we have to define that account ID is equals to and then we have to provide the all the account ID in a comma separated value, or we need to put it like and statements, multiple and statements here if we do not have the in keyword. So traditionally, if we do this, we will be able to fetch the opportunity ID with the help of account ID provided by the query. Okay, but if we do not have the in keyword, then how will you do that? Then you have to, where account ID is equals to this, let's say ID1, whatever, you need to put the account ID, exact account ID, or account ID equals to this, or account ID equals to this. So if you have 10 account ID, then you have to put it like this, or you have to put it like, in a comma separated value, you have to put it like this. Then here you will put one value, comma, other value, comma, other value. So that both of these structure will be a complex structure if we have multiple query, multiple account IDs. So this is not a feasible approach. With the help of in keyword, we can just use the variable available count IDs and we can fetch directly. So in keyword is very useful in such scenarios where we have to fetch data based on some other variable or something. Otherwise, it will be really difficult for you to fetch it directly one by one by putting all these ID. All right. So it will help you do the SOQL queries. Any doubt in the in keyword, guys? I'll again do this query. All right. So and operator, or operator, not operator. Anyone has any doubt in these operators as well? See, where not operator, I'll show you how to use. Okay. Where let's say status is not equals to open, not contacted. Okay. So I want to fetch all the leads where status is not equals to open, not contacted. Okay. So we have total 28 leads where status is something else, but status is not equals to not open contacted. Okay. You can also write it like this. So not can be used like this as well. Okay. So you can use simply not, or you can use like this, not equals to. Okay.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So suppose we have 500 records, okay, and we want to query first 50 record, and then we want to skip next 50 record. Then after again we want to query 50 records. So sir, how do we do?
See, if we want to skip couple of records, then we have to use the limit keyword and the offset keyword together. Okay. With that, we can find something like this, which we will cover shortly. Don't worry. So there are different keywords available in the SOQL query, which gives you different types of functionality. We will see what are the scenarios there. Okay, we will use offset and the limit keywords to limit the number of record and skip the number. So skipping, we will use offset, and limit we will use to fetch that particular. Let's say you want only 50, so you will use limit to get only 50. But let's say you want to skip first 50, then you will use the offset together. so that you will be able to skip first 50, but you will only get the next 50. Okay,
Yes.
we will cover that, don't worry. All right, now we will talk about the relationship queries. Relationship queries are the queries where we fetch a child from a parent or a parent from the child. So there are two types of relationship queries. One is from child to parent, the other one is from the parent to child. Okay, so if it is child to parent query, the main object where we will be doing query will be the child object. If it is a parent to child query, then the main object where we will be doing the query will be the parent object. So let's say first we will talk about the child to parent query. Child to parent query means basically in a child object, we are doing the query, but we should also be able to fetch the field of the parent object. Okay, so let's say we talk about the contacts and account. Account is the parent and contact is the child. This is a child query, so we will do a query on the contact. Select ID, comma, first name, comma, last name. Contact. Right, we have got around 17 contacts. Now, account ID we can fetch. Okay, account ID is a field in the contact itself. So we have not reached parent yet. Account dot name. But this account dot name is the field from the parent. See, account ID is the field which is in the contact. But if we use the dot operator and traverse through the parent, then we will also be able to fetch the name of account as well. This is nothing but a field from the parent object. And this is nothing but a SOQL query which defines the child to parent SOQL queries, because you are able to fetch the parent account name as well. And if you want to fetch any other field as well from the account, you just need to use the dot symbol, and with the help of the dot, you will be able to fetch it. There is no field account dot status. Let's say if we fetch something. Yeah, so we will be able to fetch any of the account field as well from the child object. So we are doing a query on the contact, but we are still able to fetch the fields of account. This is nothing but the child to parent SOQL query. Similarly, now we will do the parent to child. So we will use the same example from account and contact, but this time we will be doing query on the account. So first, let me fetch the account. And here you can write a subquery where select IG, comma, name from contacts. And you will be able to get the results. The thing to remember here is that this contacts is not the API name of contact. This is the relationship name. Okay, this is the relationship name. When you go to contact and you create on the, you check the field, the lookup account field, you will see a relationship name. That relationship name will be used here instead of the API name. All right. How can we put, we have got a question, guys. How can we put conditions on parent for child to parent query? Similarly, okay, just a second. Select ID, command, first name, last name from contact. Okay. Okay. So we have got around 17 contacts. Okay, now if I put a query where account name is equal to, let's say, IBM. we will get only 2. Okay. Is it clear, Priyanka?
Yes, Mohit.
Again, we will go to parent to child queries because I need to ID, comma, name, form, account. Now I want to fetch the fields of contact so we can do a subquery. This will just be treated as another field in this query. Okay, just like ID and name, this will be treated as another field. Okay, but this field will have a subquery from contacts. And you will get the value in one field. Okay, this is one field. If you need to traverse through it, or if it contains multiple data, you can just get it and then you will be able to use it. Okay, so it can contain multiple values as well because this is a subquery, and you can have multiple subqueries as well. Like if I also want to fetch ID from a name from opportunities, we will also be able to get that. Okay.
Sir, we cannot add filters into the subquery, right?
We cannot add data as in,
We cannot add a filter into the subquery, right? Let's say I
yeah,
want
you will not be,
contacts where.
here you will not be able to add filters on the where clause or from this because you have not these as a direct
Mhm.
result. These are the subqueries, so you will not be able to do that. Filter wise, you will not be able to put a where clause where you put filter on contact. That will not be possible. Increase the size of it. Is it better now?
Yes.
All right. So that's how we do the child to parent and parent to child. Now coming to the main part of the session, which is the SOQL clauses. Different SOQL clauses we have. You guys are able to see my PPT screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So after the operators, we have different SOQL clauses. And we are already aware about what select is, what from is, what where is. Then we have group by, having, order by, limit, and offset. So we will go through each one of these one by one. All right. Let's first talk about the limit clause. See, so limit clause is a very easy thing. You just need to understand that by using the limit clause, you will limit the results you are getting. So if I have a normal query where I am doing a query on the lead, okay, and we've got around 74 results. But in a very large organization, you will have a lot of data, and sometimes you need to display data to the user on the UI, but you cannot display all the data in a single attempt on a page. So you have to make sure that you are using something like limit or something like combination of limit and offset to show them the limited amount of data, and then we can achieve functionality like pagination where we will give them option to click on the next page and all. Okay, even in the Salesforce list view or whenever you see the list or something, you get the pagination like functionality where you will not be able to see everything in a single list, but you can click on the next and you will be able to see that. So if I use the limit clause, it is very simple. Just use the limit and then provide the number, whichever number you want to see. So if I provide the limit as 10, which means I'm saying that just show me the 10 leads. I don't want to see more leads. I just want to see the 10 leads. Okay, and you will be able to see the 10 leads. But this will not sort leads in any logical manner. Okay, so if you want to see the leads, the latest 10 leads which were created recently, then using just the limit keyword will not be able to help you because it will not fetch the result. It will not show you the leads, 10 leads which were in any manner created recently. It could be a lead which were created a year ago. So along with the limit, we use other keywords as well, other clauses as well. So here there is another clause which is known as order by. Order by basically tells you that whenever you have to order your lead in a particular manner, let's say I also add a created date field. Okay. So created date will tell you that when those leads were getting created. But if you see, there is no particular order. So this lead was created in 2019, this was in 2018, this was in 20, this was in 21. So there is no particular order on which we have got this in a list. Okay, there is no particular order. So in that case, if I want to see them in a particular order, like I want to see them in an ascending order. All right, so the leads which were created, let's say 2018 should be on the top, and then it should be increasing in the increasing order. So I can use the order by clause, order by, and then we need to provide the field name on which field we want to order it by. So which is created date. And if I click on execute, it will be by default in the ascending order. All right. So 2017 is in the beginning, and if you scroll it down at the end, you will be able to see 2023. So it is in the ascending order by default. So you need not to write something like this, but it is always advised you to write whatever order you are ordering it, ascending or descending. So for ascending, you have to write ASC, which basically tells the compiler that this is the ascending order. And if you want to order it by the descending order, then you will have to do it like this. And then it will just reverse the order of it. Okay, so now your latest leads will be on top of it. So if you want to see just the top 10 leads which were created recently, then you will first order it based on the created date, descending, and then you will limit it to 10. So if the interviewer asks you that I want to see the latest 10 leads which were created in the database, then how you're going to do that? You are going to use the order by, and you will use the created date to order them by the descending order on the created date, and then you will use the limit clause to get the just the 10 leads. Okay, so that's how you use the limit clause. Okay, now is it necessary to use the to use a date field to order by? No, you can, use the order by on the name as well. So if you use the order by on name, by default, it will be in the alphabetical orders. Okay, alphabetically, it will be in the ascending order. And if you change it to descending, then it will be converted to the reverse. Okay, so that's how we use the order by clause, and limit clause is basically to get the results in a limited number. So whenever you have a large data set where you are supposed to get the very large data in return, but you just only need a subset of that data or limited data, then you can use the limit keyword. But most of the time you will using multiple clauses together in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Okay, any doubt in the order by or the limit clause?
Mohit, actual the order is where class, then order by, then group by, then limit, right?
Sorry.
No, the SQL order, SOQL order is where class, after that order by, after that group by, then limit, right?
Yeah, if you
Not
have
just
everything in a single query, then yes, you cannot
I just, I
yeah,
want to
right.
ask the order. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot use the where clause after the order by. So or where should be first, and then order by, then group by, and then the limit. Limit should
Limit. Okay.
be last. Okay.
Okay. Mm.
Hey, hi Mohit.
And anybody was any doubt? You just try to do these things, try to break these things.
Hi Mohit.
Yep. Hi.
Hi, sorry Mohit. I just skipped that pagination thing. Like if you want to achieve that
We have not covered
pagination,
any
like
pagination.
through
We have
the-
not covered any pagination. I was just telling you that when we use, so even in the Salesforce also, if you get a very large data, let's say you get a 10,000 results in return. So you will not be displaying all those 10,000 records in a single list view. All right. So what happens is that we only show a particular, let's say 50 records, and then we provide a pagination like functionality where we click on the next, then we will be able to see the next 50. Then we click on the next, we will be able to see the next 50. So that is how we use the, these different, in the back end, we are using the limit clause only to limit the number of records we are displaying in a page. So I was telling you the use case of the limit clause in Salesforce. Okay, we have not discussed how to achieve the pagination. Okay.
On the query side, like we should keep that ID, or like if we are fetching first 100 and next 100. So I think first based on that ID, like the last ID which we got, that from that beginning, 1 to 100, then 100, 1 to again 200, like that, right? Like
Right, right.
I'm asking about that.
Pagination has, if you want me to cover pagination, I can do that, but this is not we are covering right now. But yes, you are right. That's how we do that. We keep a track of what we have, and then we move to the next page and it starts again. Okay, but that also uses the limit clause in the backend to limit the number of record we are displaying. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
See, in the drop down, you get an option to select the number of records you want to see on the page, 25, 100, 10, right? That is nothing but you are selecting a parameter for the limit clause. Like I want to only see 25 records, I want to only see 10 records. So that is nothing but the limit clause. You are setting a parameter for the limit clause. Getting a point?
Yeah, I got that. I am aware of that pagination. I'm just in the query side, like we should do like that one. I'm just asking, like while we are writing back and queries, right? So we should keep track of that ID, like how many IDs we got, like how many records we got. So again, next records, in next bunch we need to get, right? So
Right.
we need to write a query for that. So just asking that.
Yeah, I have a question. Like we have an order, as you told me that we have an order that we have to use the clauses and then the positions. So in which position we have to use which clause, how we can identify? Can you please tell me more about that one?
Guys, we are not covering pagination. We are not covering pagination here. We are covering the SOQL queries. If you have a pagination related question, I can show you whole code and then I can explain you the code. All right. But this is not we are discussing right now. We are discussing the SQL queries. So pagination related questions we can cover in the end. Okay.
Sorry, what is pagination?
See, what is pagination? Okay. Pagination basically it's a technique where we we whatever result set we have got, we try to display that in different pages. Like we do not display everything. We cannot display an infinite data in a single page, right?
Right.
So we have to make sure that limited data is we are able to display the limited data. Plus, we also give the functionality to users so that they can move to the next page to see the next data. So let's say you've got 10,000 records in return, and you want to display only 50 records on the first page, but all the other records give them in the next page, and you can move to the next page to see that.
Oh, got the
That
point. Got the point.
is-
I know what exactly you are talking.
If I show you the just a second. See this functionality where you get this previous page, next page related thing.
Yeah, got the point. Got the point.
And here you do not have that option to select how many records you want to see, but normally you will also get an option to choose how many records you want to see in this page, like 10 records, 15 records, 20 records. So that is basically setting the limit for the limit clause. That
Yeah,
is,
I did that, sir. I did that in Aura map
yeah.
one page.
Yeah, see, we create a lot of reusable component for the pagination functionality in the Lightning component as well. So whose question was related to the pagination? I can send you the code for that. And then we can discuss. Hello.
Santosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Mohit, no, just that like on query side, should we write that one or at the back end? I'm just asking about that. It's not related to pagination. Like first 100 again, next 100. In order to write that inside the query, or we should handle it in logic or code wise. We need to handle that. Just asking.
Got it. Got it. I got it. All right. Okay. Cool. See, how we can understand which clause we have to use depends on, I mean, there is no formula for that. It is only based on the practice. The more you practice, the more you will be able to understand that this is something which we can do with this clause. So it requires you a lot of practice, and I will give you some practice questions on this SOQL queries so that you can practice which clause we need to use. All right. I will give you a couple of examples to do that. So we have covered the limit and we have covered the order by. Okay. And then we have the offset clause. Okay. Let's see what offset is. Just a second. Offset is, asked a lot in the interviews, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. But offset basically tells you that whatever results you are getting, let's see, created date. So if I use So what it does is that it will remove the first 10 results from your result list. Okay, we had 74 leads and the starting lead was from the 2023, but it will remove the top 10 leads and it will only show you the leads after that. So in an interview, they most of the time ask you that I want to see all the leads created within a week, but it should skip the first 10 leads or it should skip the first 5 leads, and then I should be able to see all the remaining leads. Okay, so then we use the offset to basically skip the first 10 leads. So whatever you provide in the offset, those number of leads or those number of records, we will be able to skip. Okay. We do have a sequence. See, if we have to use the where clause, then where clause should always be in the beginning. And then we use other things. Okay, order by, then group by, then limits and offset. If you have to use limit, let's see if it gives this result. No, that means limit cannot be used after offset. So limit will be used before offset. So that is something which you can practice and will be able to see what you are getting, what you're now getting. In your normal programming life, you will not be using all the clauses available in a single SOQL query. You will most of the time be using group by or created by group by or the order by, separately in different queries. Not everything in a single query, but from the interview point of view, it is important for you to know that what we cannot do, like here limit cannot be used after offset, or we cannot use order by, and after that if we try to use the where clause, we will not be able to do that. We cannot use limit in the beginning. So if I remove the limit from here and try to use it before the order by, it just a second. It should give us the passing error, so we cannot do that. Okay. But what important is that you should know that what these clauses are doing. Okay, it's okay that even if you are not very well versed with which can be used in front of what, or which can be in the beginning, which should be at last. That is fine, because that you can easily see it by writing the query. But if you do not know the use cases of when to use limit, or when to use offset, or when to use order by, or when to use group by, then it will become difficult for you to decide that which keyword to use. Then you will just read the code written by someone else, and you will try to figure out what he did. Okay, so it is very important for you to understand why we are using these keywords. Then only you will be able to understand the question asked by the interview. Because most of the time in this topic, there will always be scenario based question. There will not be questions related to what is limit clause or what is offset clause. I mean, in the fresher level, they can ask a couple of questions like that, but in the experience level, most of the time they will ask you the scenarios, like I want to fetch the leads created by this on this date, where I just want to see 10 records, 5 records, and they'll mix couple of conditions together to give you the difficult scenario. So you need to figure out how you're going to use it. Group by is something which I will cover shortly after showing you the aggregate functions. Okay, so aggregate functions. All right. Aggregate functions are extremely important. We have used those aggregate functions in our trigger as well. And we all know that how good they were, in making our triggers from very complex to a easy trigger. So aggregate functions are very useful whenever we use these functions in triggers or in our SOQL query in our Apex class. They do a lot of heavy lifting. They do a lot of work for us, which if we need to do separately, then it will take a lot of lines of code. So aggregate functions basically do the aggregate query. They basically aggregate the results returned by your query. So they have multiple functions: count, distinct, sum, average, maximum, and minimum. Count basically count the number of rows you have in your result set. Count distinct will basically count the number of rows you have got which have which does not have any null values. Similarly, sum will calculate the sum of it. Average will average, maximum will give you the maximum of it, minimum will give you the minimum of it. So we will first try to see this, and then we will see how we are using it with the group by clause. Okay. We will again go back to our basic query. Select ID, comma name from lead. All right. We will see, we will get 74 results. That is fine. Now I want to count how many leads we have. We will count it based on the name ID. So it will give us the 74. We will get the 74 leads. So this is how we use the count function. It will give us the count of, and most of the time we will be using count with the IDs, because IDs are the unique thing. All right. And similarly, if we try to give name as well in the parameter, it will give us error, because they are aggregated query, right? They are giving you the count of all the IDs in the Salesforce, so they cannot display you name individually, because this itself is the aggregate result. So name cannot be displayed for, because they are not showing each row for all those 74 rows. They are showing the count of those rows. All right, so that is why we cannot use name like that. Okay. Similarly, if I show you the, just a second, guys. We do not have any amount field, so let's see. If we have amount or not. On which object we have amount field, guys? I want to use the
Opportunity.
yeah. All right. So if I show you the this will give you the accumulated amount from all the opportunities. Okay. Similarly, we can also do the average. We can also do the max. We can also do the min. All right. So that's how we can use the aggregate queries. Now we will see how we use the aggregate query with the group by clause. Okay. First show you the PPT, what group by clause says. See, this clause is used to group query results based on one or more field. Okay. So let me just fetch an example for it. Select ID. Here. So what this query is saying, let's first try to understand this. What it is saying that we need to fetch all the leads, we need to group them by their statuses so that we'll be able to see how many leads we have on a particular status. Okay, whichever field you group by, okay, you can see here as well because you are grouping it based on this only. If you directly just do the count, okay, it will give you 74 as a result, but you don't want to see how many leads you have. You want to see that which lead is in what status. Okay, so you want to see that how many leads you have in the open not contacted status, how many leads you have in the working contacted status. So if you want to group them by these statuses, then you can do something like this. So you grouped all your leads by the lead statuses, and then you want to see the count of all such leads. All right, so that's how you can do the group by. You can also use the multiple fields in the group by. So if you have to group it by something else as well, you will be able to do that as well. So if I see what are the fields we have in the leads, we have lead source as well, right? So we can, let's say, use the lead source as another field. Okay. Then you will be able to see another filter. Like now you have, there were around 44 leads which were in the open not contacted status, but out of those 44, you have 11 which does not have any lead source, and then you have 35 which have lead source as a Salesforce. So you can use multiple fields to group by as well. Okay, and then you can get the desired results if you want. If you want to use the limit and all something, you can also use them as with this as well. Okay, we already have 8 rows only. So you can use the limit clause and other things. You can combine multiple clauses together depending on your need, but you need to understand why we are using the group by. Okay. So that's how we use the group by. And if we have to, let's do this where lead source not equals to null.
Sir, lead
Just a
must be
second.
preferable.
Just a second. Just a second. Let's see what happens. So it will be able to give you all the results based on lead source not equals to null. Okay.
Sir,
But
we have to use having.
yes, that's what I was saying, that we use the having clause with the, whenever we are using the aggregate query, we have to use the having clause instead of the where clause, because where clause does not work in every cases whenever we use the group by. So to avoid failure of your SOQL query, we have to use the having clause in the, whenever we have to do the conditioning in the SOQL query where we are using the aggregate functions, we have to use the having clause. Okay. So this is also a very important interview question. They might ask sometime what is the difference between having clause and the normal where clause. So normal where clause works fine with all the queries where we have the normal query set. But whenever we are using the aggregate query, or whenever you are using any function which is an aggregate function, then we have to use the having clause. How will we use it? So we can use it having lead source not equals to null. Okay, if I remove this, it will give us everything. If we add this, it will give us just the results. Okay, and you can also use other fields as well, and you can say that count ID should be greater than, let's say, 5. So it will only be able to see 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So we can use different things. Now, if we talk about the difference between having and where clause in SOQL, because they ask in an interview, you need to have a proper answer for that. Okay. Sometimes what you know and sometimes how you are able to explain makes a huge difference. See, this is correct. Where clause filters individual rows, whereas the having clause filters the group instead of one row at a time. So we use the having clause whenever you use the group by or aggregate functions in your SOQL query, then we have to use the having clause because it is designed to work on the aggregate results rather than the results on the individual row, for which we have the where clause. All right. Although the answer is based on the SQL, so I'm not going to cover that. Let's ask ChatGPT.
In Salesforce.
Sorry?
It must be in Salesforce.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to add the keyword Salesforce while writing.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Hello, Mohit.
Yes, I am.
Uh, can we count the contact which is related to the account in the single query?
Can you count the
Contact which is related to the account in a single query?
in a single query? So you will get the subquery and a result, but no, in a single query, you will not be able to count it. I mean, within the subquery, you will not be able to use the uh, aggregate function. So if I try something like this, select we should not be able to. Only root queries support the aggregate expressions. So we
For
will
this, we have to use dynamic queries.
dynamic queries, or you can in the result set, once you get the result, you can read through it and then just use the size of your subquery.
Hmm.
So you will be able to get the result, desired result, which we will use in the triggers. Okay. But in the main query, you will not, in the subquery, you will not be able to use the aggregate functions. You will get this error. All right, let me move on to the next topic, which is the bind variable. See, we have already used the bind variables. Okay. Whenever you use this symbol, all right. Whenever we use this symbol, this is basically, we are saying that we have to fetch value from a variable in Salesforce. Instead of hard coding it inside a SOQL query, we created a variable and then used that variable. Okay. So this is a better way of doing things in Salesforce, because this basically gives us a flexibility so that we can have some checks on this particular field and make sure that we only pass a legal value or legit value to your SOQL query, so that your top SOQL query also does not fail. So we created a variable and used that variable in place of hard coding it directly in a SOQL query, because hard coding directly in a SOQL query is not a very good practice. There are a lot of risk involved with that. So we use bind variables to attach this particular variable with your SOQL query. All right. We have already used it multiple times in whatever we discussed in SOQL. In the trigger, we have used it multiple times, and this provides a lot of benefits over hard coding it inside in a SOQL query. Bind variables allow Salesforce to and you can reuse, obviously you can reuse this in multiple places as well. It will improve your performance. It will reduce the time spent on a query optimization. All right, it is better, mostly it is used for the security point of view as well, because it prevents the SOQL injections as well, which we will talk about later. And amount of data transferred between the application and the Salesforce. So I will provide you this PPT. You can go through that and see that. But most of the time, we will use bind variables to make your SOQL query more flexible. Okay. And like I was telling you, when we were using the in operator as well, okay, then also we used the bind variables. Okay. So those basically used to attach a particular variable from your Apex code to your SOQL query instead of hard coding it directly in your SOQL query. All right. That's what we do in the bind variables. The other thing is SOQL for loop. Okay. SOQL for loop basically is that whenever we, do the query directly inside in a for loop in the condition statement. Okay. So that is basically known as the SOQL for loop. Okay. It allows you to efficiently retrieve and process the large sets of data using the batch processing. So if I show you the example of this, let's say we have this. So we created a list of account and then we iterated over account list account. And then here we did the system.debug. So this is how we normally do. Like we do a SOQL query and then we get the list and then we iterate over the list. What SOQL for loop says is that instead of doing the query and creating a list of it, you can directly do this account. Directly do your query here. Select ID from account, comma, name from account. And you can write this statement. Salesforce says that this is a better approach than this approach. Sometimes if you have large data set, okay, this is more readable approach. This is more readable approach because it is easy for you to read that you created a list and then you iterated over a list. This is more optimized approach if you have a large data set, because what it does is that it directly do the query here. So let's say if this results was going to give you 40,000 records in return, SOQL will optimize it at runtime and will not fetch 40,000 at once. It will fetch the limited number of record at once, iterate over it, and then fetch the other records. Okay, it will keep on fetching depending on the need. But here, if it is going to return you 40,000 in return, you will have to assign it to a variable. So you will have to fetch all those 47,000 records in a one go. And then you will have to allocate the memory for all those 47 records in this list in the computer memory allocation. So from the memory point of view, also it is, a bit going to take more space. From the execution point of view also, it is processing all those 40,000 at once, so it is not optimized. Whereas this approach is an optimized approach where SOQL, the Salesforce engine will automatically pick the records, in chunks in the batch processing instead of fetching all those 40,000 records at once. So that is why Salesforce also says that it is sometimes whenever we are dealing with a large data set, it is good for us to use the SOQL query within the for loop. So SOQL for loop is basically the SOQL query whenever we do a SOQL query in the condition statement itself, rather than doing a query separately and then doing it, assigning it to a variable and then iterating over the variable. If your data set is small, then it will not make much difference, to be frank. And in fact, separating it in a separate variable will basically make it more readable. But if your data set is large, then you have to improve the performance. You can use the SOQL for loops. It will give you a better performance in comparison to the traditional way of doing it. Okay.
Sir, actually in circle follow, what is limitation like one time? How much can I fetch the record?
50,000 records. We have
50,000.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Limitations will not change, right?
Yeah, limitation will not change. This will not change anything in terms of limitations at all. It's just a better way of doing so that it will give you better performance, less memory allocation, and improve speed. So runtime complexity and space type complexity will be decreased if you use this. Okay. Runtime complexity of a program basically means that how much time it is taking to get executed. The space-time complexity basically means that how much space it requires in computer's memory to execute this particular program. All right. And if we use SOQL for loop, both of them will be decreased and we will have a better performance. All right. Ultimate aim for every program, in computer science is to have a less runtime and less space. So we have to, a program is counted as a good program if the runtime complexity and space-time complexity is as minimum as it can be. And if it is more, then that is considered as a bad program. So as a developer, we need to make sure that whatever solution we are providing, it has better performance. And that is why these things, runtime complexity and space-time complexity, becomes really very important when we give interview for bigger companies like Google or Amazon. They ask a lot of questions related to that because they want to understand whether you understand all these things or not. If you do not understand what is runtime complexity, then how you are supposed to write a good program, right? Because you do not understand the complexity behind it. So that is why they focus a lot on the fundamentals of computer science. And runtime complexity and space-time complexity is something uh, which is the core thing of any program written in any computer programming language. All right. So if somebody is preparing for bigger companies like Google or Amazon or Uber or something, then uh, obviously they have to grind through the lead code and other programming sites where they can work on the data structure and algorithm. But the starting point will always be what is the runtime complexity of this program, what is the space-time complexity of the program. So when we say that we have a loop inside a loop, that is treated as we should not have loop inside loop, because that increase the runtime complexity by n number. So if let's say we have for loop, okay, if let's say we have a for loop where we are just iterating over the n number of record, so the runtime complexity of that program will be big O(n). All right, where we are iterating through the n number of records. But if we have, let's say, loop inside a loop, all right, then what will be the runtime complexity of that program? Then it will be big O(n) square. So it will be doubled. Okay, not doubled even, it will be squared. All right, so let's say if your n means the number of records you are iterating in your program is, let's say, 10,000, then it will become the 10,000 square if you have another loop inside your loop. All right, if n is 1, then that doesn't matter, n square or big O(n). But if n is more, then your program will become worse and worse. So that is why we say that we should not have the loop inside a loop, because that will increase the runtime complexity of your program. Second
So,
point.
sir, whenever we have one, let's say we are writing a trigger, okay? Inside the trigger, I'm querying one account object. I have to change the account name to account duplicate, okay? First of all, I take the data directly, okay? Inside the for loop, I just return the query, with the help of SOQL for loop, okay? Then update the data, okay? Then I'm adding the data. It is after insert I'm doing that thing, okay? Not before insert, okay? For related object. Let me take it simple. Let's say I have account and a contact, okay? Whenever account phone is updated, I want to update contact home phone, okay? So what I did, I just written a query on contact. I take out the contact records and update the records of the contact. For that, what I did, I just write a query like you written in the for loop, and then create one instance of the contact, like create one list of the contact and update the contact. Is it good way, or we can create one variable for the list and then assign that variable to the for loop and then update that for loop directly, update that query directly? Is good.
See, in my opinion, the first approach is better. Okay. See, there is one, if you can avoid the variable list creation or variable creation, because you are not going to use it anywhere else. Why we create a variable in particular program or something is that so that we can use it somewhere else as well. If there is only one use case for it, which is on that line, and you can avoid that, it will always be better to avoid the variable creation if you're not going to use it anywhere else. Okay, because then that variable will not be stored in the database and you need not to use it anywhere else. So there is no point of assigning it to a particular variable, because if you can do it directly, that will always be a better approach.
Yeah, but for that we have to create one new list and need to update that list. In the second approach, we can directly update the list that we received.
All right, you can send me the code. I will check and tell you which one is better.
Which one is better?
The other one.
Okay.
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 All right. Thank you. And then comes the very important question. What is SOSL queries? What is the difference between SOQL and SOSL queries? There is only one theoretical question in this particular topic. That is the difference between SOQL query and the SOSL queries. Okay, most of the people, might not have written the SOSL queries in their real, job, because they are very rare. Whenever we sometimes define the keyword based search, or if someone has implemented the knowledge articles or knowledge articles for the sorry guys, I think there was some internet issue. Let me just reshare the okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I was talking about the SOSL queries, when to use this in Apex, when to use this in Salesforce. Many of us might not have written a single SOSL queries in their Salesforce journey. All right. Because they are very rare, very limited use case. Whenever you build something, let's say a search engine or a knowledge article based database, where you provide a user to provide an input. Let's say a user want to search that a phone is not working. All right, and you want to provide you want to give the articles in return which is related to the customer query or something. So whenever you build something like this, where based on the user input you need to display the results of something, then only you will use the SOSL query. SOSL queries are basically the text based search queries. Okay, SOSL stands for Salesforce Object Search Language. So based on the search keyword, you will give the results of a particular query. All right, they are nowhere near, I mean, they are not like the SOQL queries where we do a simple query on a particular table. It can be queried from the multiple tables as well, based on the text we provide in the statement. All right. So, and always remember that the return type of SOSL query is list of list. Okay, and the inner list can be multiple different S objects. So if you see the last line of this particular slide, you can see that we have created a list of list and named it search result. And what we are finding, we are finding the ACME in all fields, from accounts and contacts. And what we are returning, account with account ID and name field, and contact with contact name, phone, and email field. So in any field in the account and contact, if we find ACME, we will be returning that particular account ID and name, and we will also be returning contact name, phone, and email. Right? So we are doing the query on two different objects in a single SL query. All right. And what we are finding? We are finding this text. So SOSL queries will always start from find. All right. And here you will, give what you want to find, and then in and from all fields, and then in the returning, you will tell that what object you want to return, and within that object, which field you want to return. So if I query this in our Salesforce to show you the practical example of this, let's see how it looks. And now let's block. I want to find test because I have test a lot. And instead of contact, I want to find lead and ID from name. All right. So in return, I want accounts and lead, all the accounts and lead whose which have test as a text available in them. All right. And then I will put the debug statement. See, so you will get the accounts and the leads. We've got the account where name is test account. We have got the lead where name is test. So you will get all such leads and accounts. So that is why the return type is list of list. Okay, you will get one list where there will be different types of objects available. All right. So return type of SOSL query will always be a list of a subject, and this is a very important interview question they will ask you because it returns results from multiple objects. That is why we have to do this return type. Can we query from objects which are not related? Yeah, you can query from objects which are not related at all. See that we have not defined any relationship between account and contact here. We are just querying it from the accounts and contacts. You can put other objects as well. There is no limitations with that, but there are various limitations in terms of the difference between SOQL and SOSL, and that is a very important interview question. So you need to go through that. See, the query structure is different, the result is structure is different. All right. And in the SOQL, we do not use the aggregate functions directly. So we cannot use aggregate functions. And SOSL is optimized to retrieve a specific record. All right. Whereas SOSL is optimized to do the text-based searches. So they have their purpose is also different. They're not serving the same purpose. They are serving different purpose. All right. Searchability is on the field level, and in the SOQL query, you will only get results from one particular table. All right. Or, if there are multiple tables, then they should be connected with each other. But in the SOSL, because they are text-based searches, we search on the multiple objects and get the multiple results as well. So go through these results, go through these differences in the SOQL and SOSL, and then prepare your own documentation on that, whatever finds suitable to you. There are so many differences you can write down. I will also provide you my notes on these SOQL and SOSL queries, and then you can go through those as well. All right. And feel free to ask any question in return if you find any discrepancy in what is written and what you think of them. All right. Then comes the dynamic SOQL. Dynamic SOQL is nothing but the normal SOQL where we build the query dynamically instead of hard coding or writing it statically. We write it dynamically. Okay, this is an overrated term, and sometimes in an interview they ask it as if this is something very complex. But this is not complex. Whenever you build your query dynamically, that is known as the dynamic query. So here you see that a string. You are building a SOQL query where object name you have defined, the field name you have defined, search term you have defined, and at the end you have built the dynamic query where you are using database.query, and then inside you are passing the query parameter, which is nothing but your entire query. So your query will be built dynamically at the runtime. At the runtime, it will be determined that what is the search term, what is the object name, and what is the field name. In the normal query, you define that from which object you are fetching, what fields you are fetching, and what is the search term. But in the dynamic query, at the runtime, it will be determined that what is the search term. So it could be possible that you are getting these results from a user input or from a page in the Salesforce Lightning Web Component, and then based on what users provide, you give the different results, but you need not to change the query. So it will run for account as well as for the contacts as well as for the opportunity, depending on what user is providing. And at the time you run that program, then it will be determined dynamically that what queries from which tables and for what data we are trying to run this query. So dynamically queries are the queries which are executed dynamically, and at the runtime we decide that what we are going to fetch data from and what data we are going to fetch. All right. They're nothing else. Don't treat it as a complex topic because it is not complex. But sometimes when I ask this thing in an interview, candidate fails to answer this properly because they feel that this is something very difficult or something which requires better, more understanding. This does not require you to know more. This is as simple as the static SOQL queries. In the static SOQL queries, you know from which object you are fetching, you know which fields you are fetching, and you know what is the search term. But in the dynamic query, this is determined at the runtime. That's it. That's the only difference. Okay. And the last topic is SOQL injection. This is the second theoretical question in this particular topic. And I have attached the Trailhead module as well for this. Everybody need to go through this Trailhead module, but I will explain you what SOQL injection is. All right. So see, sometimes whenever we create the dynamic SOQL queries, okay, the dynamic SOQL queries depends on the input provided by the user. Consider that these were the input provided by the user from a Lightning Web Component, where we have, field name given, like which object you want to search from account, and which fields you want to search, you have an input field, and what is the search term, you can write your search term in the text format. And based on that, we will fetch the data from it. And as a developer, you have built it in with your full passion and everything, and it is fetching data perfectly fine. But problem sometimes comes is that when somebody tries to break your systems, okay, let's say you provided a search term and you expect a text value from it, all right, but you are not checking that whether this is text or not. You are just taking the search term provided by the user, and you are searching data based on it. Now, let's say a hacker comes in your system, and instead of providing a text, he provides a symbol. And that symbol basically can break your SOQL query. Your SOQL query might give everything in return, whatever you have in your database, and a hacker can get access of everything from your system without providing any data or without having visibility to all such things. So let's say a hacker came and you have a search term like this, where you expect a search value in the text format. And let's say he provided a blank value. He just gave a blank space. And if you have a query like this, where you are not using any escape characters and all, then your search term will be blank. And within the symbol of percentile, so it will give you everything in return. All right. And that time hacker can get access to a data which he was not supposed to get access. All right. So whenever we build a SOQL query, that is known as SOQL injection. So this is a security vulnerability where a hacker tries to attack your system, manipulates the system you have created to provide the results of SOQL query, and somehow tries to get the access to the data which he was not authorized to get access to. That is known as the SOQL injection. And in Salesforce, whenever we build this, we'll build the dynamic query, we need to be very careful with what we are building, and can that system break if we provide the data which is not in a proper format, or is there anything we can do to break the system. So whenever we build a dynamic query, we take precautions and try to use bind variables instead of hard coding it. We try to validate and sanitize the user input. We avoid dynamic query construction whenever we can. We do the code review. We do the single escape, escape single quotes method as well to, validate the user input. Whatever user input is, we will escape the single quotes from it, because that breaks the search term, and sometimes we'll give the data which user is not intended to use. So SOQL injection, you will get a question, theoretical question, but they will obviously ask you how to avoid the SOQL injection. So there are different ways to avoid it. Okay, and sometimes we have to combine multiple ways to avoid it. And you all need to go through this module in order to understand more about the SOQL injections and how to avoid it, because this is a very important concept from the interview point of view. Okay, from the interview point of view, you get to explain your level of knowledge by this question. Even if, let's say, he's not asking, let's say he asks something related to the bind variable or something, they can then also, if you know this thing, you can put this thing in the picture and can explain about these things. This basically will basically make a good impression. All right. All right. So